You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with DM Needham. Hi, gang. Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. Today's guest is Maddie Kelley. Maddie Kelley resides currently in an island off of China. And she is also the author of a brand new book that just came out called What I Gave You. It's a book of poetry that she decided to create based on her life as a 20-year-old. Today is a great day to start your own podcast, whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show. Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Follow the link in the show notes and tell Buzzsprout we sent you. That gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan and help support our show. And that $20 gift card will come after you have your second paid invoice. So let's create something great together and join Buzzsprout. She said that poetry always kind of had, there was no connectedness, and she's a big fiction reader. So what she did with her book was create a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the poetry has a story to it. So I hope you enjoy the interview. We talk about a lot of fun things, and check it out. Hi, Maddie. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We tried to do this a while ago. We had some complications, but I'm glad we finally got connected. So you're in China.
Yes, I currently live in Macau, which is a small island in the South China Sea. It's really close to Hong Kong, actually. It's about like a 45-minute ferry ride just across the water.
Okay. What made you go to Hong Kong?
I actually lived there as a child. So my parents took me out there when I was 12 for my dad's job to Macau. I'm originally from Las Vegas, so casino life is sort of in my blood. And so my parents took us out there when I was 12. I fell in love with it because there's a sense of safety here that is not necessarily the case in the United States. So as a 12-year-old, I could take a taxi anywhere I wanted to go in the city. I could meet my friends anywhere. I could go to their house. And that newfound sense of independence, I just was like, I latched onto and I refused to let go of. And so flash forward several years, I just graduated from college. I was working for Disney, and my chance to sort of work my way into the area that I wanted to do was closing. So I decided to take a step away from Disney and to pursue what I wanted to pursue, which was attractions. I really loved the idea of building, basically like taking stories and bringing them to life, and like making magical moments is the heart of everything that I do. So I developed that at Disney. I fell in love with their mentality and how they do things. And then because it's such a corporate beast, like getting into that space is so impossible. So I was like, okay, I'm going to step away and go find a place who's willing to give me a shot as like a 22-year-old, 23 newbie. And so the company here in Macau, which is one of the big casinos here, it's called Galaxy Entertainment. They have a section in project development, which helps to build attractions, because Macau is trying to diversify their portfolio and not just be casinos. That's why I ended up coming here to Macau. So I build attractions for one of the major casinos here, and it's been a blast.
Nice. I had a friend, or actually she still works for Disney down in Florida, but she wanted to be a cartoonist. However, she works at the park instead. She enjoys her job, and she's been there for 20 something years, and she loves working for Disney. So
yeah,
I understand that a lot of people go to Disney with the dream of, either cartooning or doing the other attraction bit, and they don't always get there. So yeah, it's smart that you took the opportunity. Go ahead and have a drink.
No, it's funny that you say that, because I was talking to so many of the executives that work at Disney, I was kind of crazy. I was like always emailing them, being like, I'd love to chat. And because I was in the college program, they're a lot more willing to listen and like sit down with young people. And one of the biggest advice that they always gave was like, don't be afraid to leave Disney. It's okay to step outside and to come back. Like, we will always be here, but the opportunity for additional experience that could potentially propel your career is not necessarily something that will always be around. So I had to take their advice. It was hard. Working for Disney is so fun, and it's an amazing environment, and it's like a cult kind of. You just are so thrilled to be there every day, and you like love your job so much. And I really appreciate that about them. So that's something that I miss, but I'm happy that I have moved on to other things.
I know a little bit about, and I misspoke when I said Hong Kong, but the former lead singer of NXS, he grew up in Hong Kong. So
Oh, really?
he did a couple of specials on YouTube. They're on YouTube now about life in Hong Kong as an adult. He was talking though about, and his sister Tina talks about in her book, the fact that, yeah, when they were little, he would go off, like you said, it was no big deal. He went to a school where it was for citizens, people that spoke English, and he was from Australia. But he would go to, they thought they were in they lived in a hotel for the first part. And so they would ride the hotel elevators. Nobody said anything. They would go catch a cab and go meet their mom. I mean, it was just very free. And there was a community sense though about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the friends that I made. I also went to an international school because I spoke English.
That's
and
what he did,
so yeah, a lot of my friends were from different countries, and it was the first time that I had ever experienced being around such an international group of people. Like, my best friends were from Sweden, from England, from Hong Kong, and you like live at each other's houses. You go there after school, or you spend, sleepovers there and things like that. So it was very much like a sense of community, especially I feel like as an expatriate, it's an automatic sense of community because you have that shared experience of leaving the place that you are from to come to be in a brand new place, a new culture, a new environment. And especially something like China, I think is a little bit of a culture shock for people who have spent so much time in Western culture. So when you come here and you move here for the first time, all the expatriates tend to like come together, and it's a really tight-knit community for sure. And even still, like in Macau, my parents have lived here for so long, but they have a very like tight-knit group of friends that they spend a lot of their time with.
So in a way, I know America is considered the melting pot, but the way you're describing it, it sounds very much like a melting pot that
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
find. And here's the thing. I think the culture, I mean, I'm speaking from what little I know, the culture there is not so, well, I know that their rules and restrictions can have really bad penalties. There's not the gun culture.
No, I mean, you just said it. Absolutely. You don't want to go to jail here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what it is. Like, you really don't want it. I just feel like the incentive to commit a crime is so low because the alternative or the consequence of that crime is way worse than whatever is motivating you to even consider maybe, like doing the crime in the first place. So crime here is really not a thing. Like, maybe petty theft every once in a while, but their CCTV system is so intricate that you can trail somebody from the very first second that they commit the crime all the way up to the point where they think that they got away with it, and you can track their movements exactly through cameras all over the city. So it's impossible really to commit a crime and get away with it. So it's nice, especially as a woman, like now in my 20s, to not have to worry about taking a taxi home by myself. Sometimes I forget to lock my door at night, and that's totally okay. I can go to a coffee shop, spend like 4 hours there doing work or writing or whatever, and I can get up and leave my purse to use the restroom, and I don't have to fear that my belongings will be gone. And in the US, it's like completely inconceivable.
Well, unless you know people that work at the coffee shop.
True. Yes. That's a good point.
Because I did have that when my husband was in dialysis. I did have that experience. It's like, you're working and you're typing up your writing or whatever, and it's like, okay, nature calls, I have to go, and you're
Yeah.
not going to want to close the laptop and drag. No. So
Especially you
yeah.
might lose your spot. That's my
Yeah.
thing is I'm like, I got a good spot here. I've been here for 2 hours. I got
Yep.
another round to go. Like, I don't want to lose my spot.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I had a spot at Barnes that was my
Yeah,
spot, and that's where I wrote. And it's just like you get used to the energy of being in the same connected space. So you are a writer as well.
I am. Yes. I'm a published author. So I'm actually publishing my second book. I am currently in the process of doing the pre-orders, but my first book was nonfiction, all about attractions, because I actually used that as a way to get into Disney. I was just graduating from college and I was an art history major. And I was like, oh my God, I just now realized what I wanted to do with my life. And I have zero experience to show for it because it took me so long to figure it out. So I was like, how can I get experience quickly and also have something impressive on my resume that will encourage recruiters to look at me more closely? And so I was able to find a program that helps authors essentially like succeed, because they say that there's tons of authors in the world, but only a certain amount of them succeed, because getting to the publishing process is a feat in and of itself. It's just a lot of work and a lot of patience. And for someone who's not great with long-term goals, the idea of, taking a year out of my life to write a book seemed impossible. But I found this program, they were able to help me do it, and I published, and then I was able to like get my, it wasn't necessarily my dream opportunity, but it was it was a foot in the door at Disney. So I was happy about that. And when COVID hit, here we are now, like 3 years later, I just feel like COVID forces all of us to deal with what we want to do with our lives, what's really important to us, and to focus on that kind of a thing. So I was at work and work was slow for me for a while. I was, just the lowest man on the totem pole. So there just wasn't really enough for me to do. And I have never stopped writing. I guess it has always been a part of me, and I never really understood or saw that until I was, at my desk on a random Tuesday, looking at emails that I had already responded to or, didn't know how to respond to. Basically, I was bored. And I was like, you know what? I think that I deserve the opportunity to publish my work. I'm proud of the things that I do, and I get really awesome feedback from friends and family. And I think that I want to do something for myself. I don't want to publish this because it's for a job or it's, for money or whatever. I just want to do something creatively for myself. I'd never done something like that before. I'd never done something without like an ulterior motive of trying to get in somewhere somehow. And then when COVID hit, I was like, you know what? No, like I need to have some things that I do because I love them and they're important to me. And, if it comes with a best-selling title, great, but that's not what I'm in it for. And so that's what encouraged me to publish my second book now.
And tell us about your second book.
It is a collection of poetry, which is all about life in your 20s. It's a roller coaster of ups and downs, learning how to deal with independence, leaving home for the first time, coming to terms with who you are as a person, like, dealing with the hard questions that you tend to run away from as a person. I know I did. And then the book kind of ends at the beginning of this next phase in my life where I feel really excited about the steps that I'm taking towards my future. I feel like I've learned so much from my past relationships, and now I feel like I understand what I'm looking for in a partnership and what I bring to the table, and, just sort of coming to terms with who you are completely, the good and the bad, all of those things that combine to make life what it is. And I feel that life, you're really living life if you feel everything, whether that's happy or sad, but the fact that you're feeling things so deeply to me means that you're really living life to the fullest. And so that's kind of what this book is all about. It encourages us to feel deeply and to you know, go back and look at times in our life when it was great, when it was bad, what we took away from that, what we're bringing that to our future, and that kind of an encompassing experience. But I actually never read poetry growing up. I don't know. I just thought it was like so boring. And, for an avid fiction reader, I was like, poetry has no engaging storyline to me. There's nothing bringing me to the end or to the conclusion. And so that was something that was really important to me when I was writing this, is I was like, I personally don't read poetry. And so why would I expect somebody to pick up a poetry book if I don't even do it myself? So I really wanted to make sure that there's a clear like beginning, middle, and end with a climactic moment and a journey that I could take my readers on. So that's why it starts at like leaving home. As a young person, you leave home, you fall in love for the first time. It's an amazing, intense roller coaster experience. And then, unless you're one of the lucky few who finds their soulmate, young, you break up. And that's a mess itself. And you got to pick up the pieces and you got to move on. And then the end is coming to this sense of like peace and settling, but also being excited about that place. Like you're finally in a good spot and you can see things clearly. It's like the calm after the storm. You're like, I can finally see the horizon and I know where I'm going.
This episode of the Better Two podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needham, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. And I mean, in all honesty, you will go through that sometimes several times in your life. I mean,
I hope so.
Well, the amazing thing is, speaking because I'm 54, it's like I remember being in my late 20s and I ended my marriage. I was no longer a stepmom. My life was completely in transformation, and then it transformed again, and I was flying by the seat of my pants. And I can look back and just think of the wild ride it is. And then I think, I had 16 years with one person, which is amazing in itself because, nowadays that doesn't really happen too often. You don't get that lucky. But now it's like, okay, here I am again. Got to figure it all out. And that's why I said, it's like, you will go through, and even things that you have figured out in your 20s, you'll revisit and you may look at it a little differently.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like, I hope that I don't have it all figured out, because then I feel like the rest of my life would be so boring and I would have nothing left to write about.
Yeah.
Like, this would be my one and only book.
Now, I'm sure you have many stories there and many stories that are becoming.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, when I started writing,
chapter.
When I started writing, I was in high school, and then I started writing another story when I was in my early 20s. And those characters have stayed with me. However, when I finally took the leap into publishing it, the characters hadn't changed. Mm-hmm. And the story has changed. But that's also because I've lived a different life than when I was at 20.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that about writing. I think authors put so much of themselves in their books, even if it's fiction or nonfiction or poetry, whatever the genre or the medium. But I think writing to me is like a fingerprint. You can see that person inside of the words, and it's something that's so inspiring to me. It's why I'm such an intense reader. I feel like I get inspired by other writers and other creatives. To me, creativity breeds creativity, right? Like, I get inspired by television, by movies, by books, because other people are creating something and I'm like, oh, I love what they did here, or I love this wordplay that they used here. And then I take all of those things and I bring it into my own writing. And that was another reason I decided to publish this. I was like, I don't want to, this might sound bad, but I don't want to rob the opportunity for somebody to read something that I have written and miss being inspired by that. Like, what if somebody reads it and this changes their life, or it gets them really excited, or it encourages them to publish something that they've been hiding and holding on to for years. And for me, that was enough to be like a kick in the pants, to be like, yes, off you go to the publishing world. Do it again. Who cares?
That's one of the biggest gifts as a writer, is connecting with somebody on an emotional level. And quite honestly, as you're talking about creativity, it's like, breeds creativity. The fact is, when I took acting classes, the teacher's like, well, you have to live in the moment. And the truth is,
Mm.
as a writer, if you really are telling a compelling story and connecting with your audience, you have to live in your character's life at that
Yeah,
moment.
absolutely. I remember because I had written this over a span of so many years, like since I was in college up to today, I had to go back and live in the moment that I had written some of these pieces. Like I had written something when my grandfather passed away, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced like true loss. And I was revising that work, and I couldn't do it without like stepping back into that mind frame, because otherwise it would be a completely different story. Like you were saying, it just would change completely if I were to write it from the perspective today of somebody who has, healed and is moving sort of like forward in life. You don't really ever move on from loss, but at least you move forward. And so it's true, like I have to go back and live in that intense emotional space in order to do the story justice.
Right. You have to be raw.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a gift. And it's also something that can reopen old wounds when you do it.
Yeah. And I sometimes I feel really bad because I write in the height of emotion, like
Mhm.
I'm feeling some type of way and I got to get it on the page. And like, that's how I was feeling in that moment in time. But that doesn't necessarily reflect how I feel right now. And so there are some pieces for sure where I look back and I'm like, I'm sorry. Thankfully, like I'm hoping that nobody knows like what is about who, because I don't want to wake up to a morning of like a bunch of text messages after everybody gets their book being like, was this about me? And I have to be like, no, but I do I do have to say that sometimes I get really intense, and it's just raw emotion. Like that's
Mhm.
what makes it what it is. That's what makes poetry what it is. That's what makes all writing good, is that it's intense, it's vulnerable, it's raw, and that's what people relate to at the end of the
Well,
day.
I mean, if you look at a movie and, movies that are lackluster, you're like, well, that was a really bad script, or, the acting was bad. Well, the acting was bad because the script was bad. So, if someone's taking your words and they're not doing it justice, as far as your comment about, you hope nobody recognizes it. Are you familiar with Jackie Collins?
Yes.
Okay. She, back in the day, would write these books about Hollywood, and she would have everybody wondering,
Yeah.
well, is that about such and such? Who knows? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I think about Taylor Swift too. Like she does that, she writes whole albums about guys that she's broken up with. And I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it.
well, I think that's kind of more of the word. I was talking to somebody earlier today, who's in his 70s, and he's an author as well. And we were talking about family secrets, about how, back then there was the big family secret because, his mom was pregnant and she ended up going off somewhere so the family wouldn't know.
Mm,
That old story. But nowadays, that it still happens occasionally, I'm sure, but most of the time it's like those secrets are out. You
yeah.
don't have the societal norms of you better keep that quiet, otherwise
Yeah.
somebody may say something. Now it's like, no, we're just going to say it, we're just going to be there. And I think
Yeah.
it's somewhat liberating,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
holding a secret like that is kind of toxic.
100%. Feel like I feel like a lot of the times too. I mean, thankfully, life is changing and we're evolving as human beings. And so talking about our emotions and, you know, seeing it not as a sign of weakness, but instead as a sign of strength that you can open up and be vulnerable is great. But, everybody's family is a little bit different, and mine growing up was always very like, we don't show weakness in this family, and we don't, you know, sit around and cry about our emotions. Like that's not what we do. And so I think that's where my writing comes from. Is like I needed some sort of a release. And so I would just journal, or I would, write whatever I was feeling in that moment. And so for sure, like my words are born from that. But now, I mean, for me, I think it's an emotional release. It's how I process my emotions. And once I get it on the page, I can absolutely then go and talk to somebody about it if I'm having a hard time, if I'm at a fight with somebody, or, if whatever I might be feeling, at least I can articulate it to that person. But I need to spend the time with myself first to understand those feelings and where they're coming from and why I'm having them. And then I think that it's like a healthy place to talk to somebody about it. So writing helps me understand my emotions, process them, and then deal with them sort of in an effective way, especially because once it's on paper, I can't avoid that. Like
Right.
I see it, it's there, I got to deal with it. I need to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, I want to say, I actually applaud you because you're willing instead of jumping right into the fire with whoever you may be having an issue with, you're willing to go and, dare I say, analyze it by writing it out and looking at the
Yeah.
big picture. You know, a lot of the times we end up in the situations we do because we just lash out.
Yeah. My ex was like somebody who had to talk through his feelings in order to get to the conclusion. And that was always something that was really, it was something that I had to genuinely work with him on, because when you are with somebody that has to, talk it out in order to get to the conclusion, you're on that ride from the beginning. You can't necessarily react at the first sentence, because that's not necessarily what they're trying to say. Like they're trying to get to point Z, and you got to go all the way from A to get there. And so it took a lot of patience for me to have to like hear him out entirely without jumping on something early in the thought process, because otherwise it would just like start a whole other fight that would be a tangent that was not what he was trying to get across in the first place. And so like we missed the point of what he was trying to tell me. And so like as a partner, I felt like I had to become a better listener in order to understand, maybe what I was doing wrong or something that he was trying to say in the beginning. But I had to like be patient with that and not jump at the initial thing and start some other random fight that doesn't have any meaning.
Well, and here's the thing, it's a rarity to find a male, and that this is going to be in my generation, that is actually willing to be open. My husband was, but most time, as you were saying, we're strong, we don't want to cry, we don't want to show emotion, and men are raised like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that goes back to the toxic masculinity. I mean, why do we have to shut down those emotions? It's all part of being a human.
Absolutely. And just because it's like, women are absolutely emotional creatures. We nurture life literally, which is awesome. But that doesn't mean that men have to be these like, brutes who just like grunt all the time. Like that's not, that doesn't necessarily mean one or the other. We can absolutely do both. And I think that if, as parents, we raise our kids at the beginning to be more open with their emotions and to talk them through as a family, that men would probably be a lot more chill. I feel like they have so much pent up energy from the fact that they don't necessarily express their true feelings right away, that they end up being like all the time.
Well, and the funny thing is, talking about how we changed and everything, when you look at, as a writer, when you look at the romance novel still has him being the big toxic man and everything else.
Yeah.
But yet, if you poll women, they don't want that. They don't want somebody to come in and rip off their clothes. But yet in a book, they want that. And I'm often puzzled by this, because
I don't
it's
get
like,
that.
how do you say you don't want this, but yet you're willing to have this fantasy? And let's be honest, since you worked for Disney, romance novels are basically Disney princesses for grown-ups. I mean,
that is not my vibe at all. I am
no.
much more of like a murder mystery, sci-fi kind of gal. I did read, actually, one of my favorite series is by Anne Bishop. It's called the Black Jewels series. And the whole series is, it flips the relationships between men and women on their head. That's the entire premise of the book, is that it reconstructs social constructs between men and women. And it talks about how women are the nurturers, the protectors. They are like not necessarily softer, because the women are actually who are technically in power in this book series, but we have like a softer emotional, like if I were to describe it as like an orb, sort of like a light colored orb, whereas for the men, they are these like warrior types. But their duty as a male is to honor, cherish, and protect the queens. So with that, like, yes, necessarily, if anything were to go wrong, they would protect their queen with violence. But most of the time, that comes out as, like, for example, they're witches. And so during their period, they're very vulnerable to attack, essentially. Like, their powers are very weakened. They are susceptible to be attacked more easily. So the men tend to, like, nurture them in a way that's like, they make them snuggle up in bed, they tuck them in, they make sure that they have enough water, that they're drinking their tea, that they're getting enough rest. And it's like those kinds of actions are as how they show their protection to women. And I feel like that makes more sense than anything else that I've ever understood about, like, the relationship between men and women that I've seen in my own life, that I've read in books. And that one was the first time that I'd ever sat back and been like, yes, that is absolutely what I'm looking for in a man and in a relationship. Like, I need that. And I encouraged my ex to read it. I was like, I need you to read these books, because this is how I see, and this is how I want to be treated as a woman, essentially, in a relationship. I don't know. He's not like a reader by nature, so it was hard for him to, like, get into it. But that was another thing for me where I was like, I just asked you to read one book. I'm not asking you to read 400 books. Yeah, I just need one. But that's a side conversation. But essentially, like, it really helped me to debunk a lot of the misconceptions that I had been taught about how women and men treat each other.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think as you evolve, you can see how you want to be treated and how the relationship needs to work. Going back to the romance novel, I wrote one. The rest of my books I consider realistic fiction, because I'm not going to give you a happily ever after, because happily ever afters, this is the misconception. And I go back to a movie I watched, Reminisce, with Hugh Jackman. And the woman tells him, and I've said this a couple of times now, but it's just a true statement. The woman says, tell me a story with a happily ever after. And he looks at her and he says, I'd have to stop it in the middle of the story. And it hit me good. It hit me at my core, because I'm living that happily ever after. He's gone. I'm still here. So there is no happily ever after, but yet we want this fantasy that there is. But what is it?
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you're one of those couples that you've read about that pass a half hour apart, someone's going to have a broken heart.
I always think that too. Like, that's why I hate reading stories that don't necessarily have, like, an ending that's neatly tied in a bow. But those are also my favorite stories, because to me, that not only gives the reader space to imagine multiple different endings, so you're still thinking about the book even after you put it down for days, years, hours, however long, but I feel like that's also more accurate. A lot of my stories that I've written, or like my poems that I've written, don't end in a neat, happy ending. That's just not what it is. Like, I wrote one about unrequited love, that, this girl leaves her small town to go pursue her dreams. And as a result, she leaves behind the boy that she had been in love with forever, and that they had, like, the greatest relationship. And so essentially she's just reflecting on, the fact that she still loves him, and that she doesn't feel like she can go home now, because then she's having to choose between her career and this guy. And also, if she were to leave this big city and come back to her small town, when people look at her and see her as a failure as a result. And he's like, moved on, but he's still living his life in that small town, being like, if you ever want to come home, you know where to find me. But I mean, they're having these conversations separately in their own heads, but it's the same thing, right? Like, I don't end the story with them being like, she doesn't come to a conclusion. She doesn't make any decisions. It's just, you're left wondering if they're ever going to get back together, or if she's going to keep living their life and they're just going to live with unanswered questions. I think there's something I've been pondering a lot lately, is that people don't do well with unanswered questions. As human beings, we like resolution. We like justice. We love all of these things that say there's a beginning, a middle, and a clear end. And we have a hard time accepting when things, like, don't have closure. And to me, like, closure doesn't exist. My ex and I ended on great terms, but so much has changed since then. And there are so many unanswered questions that I have, like, why did we do this? Or why did he say that? That I will never have answers to. And I just have to like move on and be okay with that.
What you say is true. I mean, whether it's a relationship or a TV show that gets canceled suddenly, you're sitting there going, well, what happened?
Yes.
And I mean, your relationship, and this is the tricky thing about relationships, you can sit here and unpack everything. But like I said, 10 years from now, you may look back at that relationship again and then reframe things, because I've come to realize this was my Christmas was spent reflecting back on a bad Christmas when I was a kid. And it's funny because we don't realize this, but when we're younger, we tend to frame things how our mind accepts it, how it's going to protect us. And as we get to be older, we can actually clearly see it because our mind's more willing to accept what was the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that goes with any kind of relationship. And it's just something, especially when it's something that's close and raw, we don't fully look at the picture. We just kind of want to cocoon for a while, dare I say?
Yeah, I think like, you know, especially in my case, I was so young. We started dating when I was 18. And so you see a lot of things with rose-colored glasses, and you explain a lot of things away in the attempt to keep everything kosher and to keep everything happy. But looking back on it now, I can see that there were so many cracks that I explained away 100%. Like there were so many little things that I knew deep down were not necessarily going to be, they were indicators that we weren't going to last forever, but I didn't want to accept that because I felt like we had a magical story, and, you know, he treated me really amazingly and he was an amazing boyfriend. And so for me, like, I would say, oh, you're so petty. You know, why are you letting these little things bother you? Like, you have such a great person here. Why are you ruining it? Because you can't get over these little tiny things. But what I've come to realize is that those little things are big things for me. If they are something that I see that I can't get over, to me, then that's obviously a big deal. And I need to be okay with that. And to say, like, this is who I am, this is what I want. And I am not going to make excuses for myself about that. I'm not going to make excuses for another person if they're not, you know, meeting those standards for me. Then it is what it is, and it's just not meant to be. And that was something that I had to like learn after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, when I can look back at my first real relationship and my first marriage, and it's like those situations lent themselves. There were signs there that this is not right, and you choose to ignore it. Especially in the case of the marriages, we were already having issues, but the girls really wanted us to get married. So it was kind of like, well, I want to make them happy.
Yeah.
And it didn't last a year after. I mean, we were together 3 years prior, but after we got married, it didn't last a year because his idea has changed. His idea now is, I own you. No, you don't. Just because you got a piece of paper doesn't mean I'm chattel. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. No.
But
definitely not.
I don't think I don't. Some men don't understand that. They think once they've, signed over that marriage certificate, it's all permanent, and now I can say what you do and what you can't do. No, sorry.
And all men love tying down a strong, independent woman. Like for them, that is the ultimate chase. That is the ultimate goal, is to get an independent woman to feel like she needs you. And then once that happens, it's like, okay, we're done. Thank you.
When I look at when I started driving, my stepfather's like, you're going to learn how to fix a car. Now, mind you, I grew up in a shop because my dad was a mechanic, but my stepfather's like, you're going to learn how to change a tire. You're going to learn how to jump a car. If you're going to be responsible enough to drive, you're going to do this. Fine. So I meet the first husband. He's going to do a brake job on this Buick. Okay, it's an older car. I can help. I'm like, I'm going to help you. No, this is man's work. Should have known then.
I wish the listeners could have just seen my face right now, because it was full of disdain.
If they go to YouTube, they can see it. But the fact is, he was like, it's man's work. And, there was other things that he would term woman's work. And it was just kind of like, So these were all these things that kept I love the girls so dearly. This is why I stayed. I know this is why I stayed. But I remember one day being married to my second husband, and I'm like, well, the car needs an air filter. He's like, okay. He's like, I'll be right back. So I walk down the aisle to get an air filter. I go past all these guys who are all puzzled. I grab the air filter, come back. He goes, I love you.
Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah. So it's like, I had somebody that got me, that wasn't willing, that was my partner, that wasn't going to go, oh, you're a girl, you're not supposed to do those things. Who said?
Yeah, that for me is a key differentiator. Like if you see your relationship as a partnership from both sides, like as a woman and a man, or as a woman and a woman, and a man as a man, whatever. But if you see your relationship as a partnership, that's a completely different understanding of how that relationship functions versus, like your, I don't even know what else to call it. Like
Neanderthal?
I just feel like that, yeah, cavemen relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not playing Leave It to Beaver. We're not doing any of that. And it just, it got to a point at the end where he was gone on the road. He was a truck driver at that point, not when we first got together, but at this point he's gone on the road. I'm a part-time disc jockey and I'm at home with the kids. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so basically I'm married, but I'm a single mother. Why am I doing this? The kids are going to get older, and who am I going to be left with? Him?
Yep.
No. And I had a friend who was kind of pushing me. So,
especially as a mom too, my mom talks about this a lot. Like it's really important to have both parents present because that makes you the good guy and the bad guy. And then when he comes home, he's like the hero because with mom, she always is the one to say no, or she has to be the one to enforce the rules because nobody else is there to do it. And so then you have to be the bad guy. And it's like, it's totally not fair.
Well, this situation was even worse than that because I wasn't really their mom. I was their stepmom, but their mom wasn't in the picture. And when he would come home, he'd basically say, go to your room. When I discovered Buzzsprout, I was about 30 or 40 episodes already in. And I thought, I really think they have a lot of opportunities here and a lot of options for me to explore. But it's going to be a lot of work to move the podcast. Wrong. It was so simple. It was a click of the button and everything transferred over seamlessly. And bonus, I got a website out of it, a website that has all my social media links for the podcast, and everything in there is central in one place. What could be more convenient? I mean, honestly. Then, besides that, a couple of clicks of buttons and I'm on every major platform. It was simple. And you want to build your audience. You want to be on every platform you can. And also the other thing was analytics. The analytics were top of the line. So if you have a podcast already and you want to move it, I would highly recommend doing it with Buzzsprout. And if you're new to the podcasting business, Buzzsprout is the way to go. And right now, if you follow the link in the show notes and tell Buzzsprout we sent you, it'll get you a $20 gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, which helps support our show. And we would greatly appreciate it. The only thing is, remember, before you freak out if you don't get it after you get one paid month, it takes two before you get that Amazon gift card. So, check Buzzsprout out. I'm sure you would be happy. And let's create something together and come over to Buzzsprout. So it was a very bizarre thing. Like, fact is stranger than fiction occasionally. My life is proof of that. But I mean, so it was like, they called me mom and everything, but it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, it was good mom, bad mom, and he had no say except go to your room.
Exactly. Which is totally like not the partnership that we want in life.
No, I remember coming home from working 2 shifts at the radio station, and he had gotten the kids up, did not feed them breakfast, did not feed them lunch, and proceeds to tell me when I hit the door, can you feed them? And can you do my laundry? Because I got to go out on the road tomorrow.
And you're like, what have you been doing all day?
Oh, yeah, because I had to go back to the station for another shift because we were shorthanded. And it was just kind of like, yeah, I but I was the good little wife at that point. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. But yeah, I mean, you have to look at your partner. And there's so many women that because the way we're raised, we take that.
Yeah. And I refuse to do that. Absolutely.
There's been a couple of women and they're in their 30s that their husband handles all the finances. They have no clue what's going on. And I'm thinking, what are you going to do if he were to get in a car accident and die?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I think there's an important piece, especially, and I think the younger generation recognizes this, that you have to know what's going on for both of you. It
Hmm.
can't just be, I'm going to rely on you.
I think that all the time. Like, why in school, with the fact that we have access to information at the tip of our fingers, am I spent or am I required to memorize things that I don't need to have memorized later in life when they don't teach me how to manage my finances, how to take out a loan, how to mortgage a house, like how to do all of these really important life changing things. And then at 18, you expect us to go to college already in so much debt because we had to take out a loan that we don't understand and just like go on with our lives as if nothing is different. And it's like, to me, that makes no sense, because I agree. I think financing is so important and we're not taught it in school. And so you go into your life with no understanding of how to manage money, no understanding about how to, like work with a bank. You don't understand any of the terminology. And so immediately you're at such a disadvantage. And if as a woman, people believe that you can't handle finances, then you're at even more of a disadvantage, because if something were to happen, like at the end of the day, we all have to manage our own shit and we all have to take care of our own money. Even if you're married, like
Right.
you had to start somewhere, sister. Like
Right. Right.
you came from somewhere before you were with him. So like, how did you manage your money then? My mom and our family handles all of the cash. And so for me, she was always telling me, and like still is to this very day, that finance is so, so, so important. And that if you don't understand it and you don't know how to manage it, you're screwed.
Well, my husband, because of his health issues, I did all that. So it wasn't a big deal for me. But, you make a very good point. And I was just reading an article about, will public schools be going bye-bye? Because a lot of teachers and stuff, because of the remote learning and everything, it's going away. And somebody made a very good point, and I think it's very true, that we have, when I was in school, if you brought a calculator to school, because I had a Disney calculator I got in first grade, and I brought it for show and tell, and I was allowed to pull it out, show the class, and then it had to be put away and never to be seen on property again. Otherwise, it was going to be taken away, because you will never have a calculator in school. Yes, I know we have phones. I know it's funny now.
Now, yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, and this is what this person was saying in the article, is that we have information at the tip of our fingers. And just as you said, we don't need to learn everything that we used to know. And AI is going to be doing some of the jobs that we were going to do. Yeah. So instead of teaching kids necessarily you better do these standardized tests so everybody's on the same playing field, why not go for, number one, their skill set, what they can do. Number two, teach them about their money and life skills. Three, teach them about emotional skills. Schools should still exist because of the socialization aspect, because we don't want to get to a point where none of us leave our houses and know how to interact, because that's one thing COVID has done.
Yeah, absolutely.
People forget how to act in public.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that I've always been saying that the school systems need to evolve and grow. Like, it's really interesting if you look at statistics for what we like, it's similar grade averages or grade ages. So if you're in the third grade, what they were teaching third graders in the 50s versus what they are teaching third graders now, what they were learning in the 50s was way harder than what third graders are learning today. Okay. And that's shocking. We've come so far, technologically speaking, that why we aren't like challenging our future to continue to grow and be smarter than our previous generation doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It feels like we are just like dumbing everything down, but for what purpose?
Well, if you take away critical thinking, I mean, my generation still had critical thinking, but then they started saying, well, we don't need to teach them cursive. We don't need to teach critical thinking. We're all about standardized test scores. If we don't teach you critical thinking, how are you going to question if something is off? How are you not?
As a workforce, the reason that people get paid more is because they're the ones who can look at a situation see something that's could be better or could be different, and they're the ones who actually implement that, you know? And so if we don't have those kinds of skills, and if that's not what we're teaching our future, then that's also not what the job force is looking for at this point. When you get out of college, they want critical thinkers. And if you're not taught that in school, you're essentially entering the workforce wholly unprepared and in total debt. And you're like, okay, great. We've just set our futures people up for total failure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I mean, I've had a very diverse background as far as jobs, but when I went to insurance, I was in mail file and everything. And then when I went to my first job as an adjuster, I was supposed to be in working the dispatch desk, but they ended up putting me as an adjuster to get training. We had 3 days of training on liability claims. So we're talking accidents. And I remember somebody telling me, don't worry, you're only going to have a single car loss. That's all you guys are going to get is single car losses initially. You're not going to have to worry. It's like a deer hit, you know, somebody hit some vandalism. Okay, fine. So I have 3 days of training. I get to my desk and the first claim I get is a parking lot accident. And I looked at my boss and I said, what is this? Well, we really liked your liability decision and the way you think. So you're not going to have single car losses. You're getting liability losses. Okay.
Okay.
And off I went. Well, they did something similar later on. About 6 months later, I was going to my desk and one of the other adjusters who was in the bodily injury unit from accidents looks at me and she goes, I hear you moving over here. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't want to deal with blood. No. She goes, well, I hear you moving over here. And I'm like, I did.
And who?
Well, one of the supervisors were talking and they really liked what, yeah, okay. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, but if I hadn't had that critical thinking down, but here's something to think about. So as I'm at that job, they come out with this computer system. This is early 2000s. That is going to handle the left turn liability decisions because a human can't necessarily determine this. The funny thing about that, and granted, this is like I said, early 2000s. The funny thing about that is the computer didn't allow for all these scenarios. Nobody had put all the scenarios possible in there, but you still have to follow this. So it was just kind of like, yeah, okay. So AI, while it's great, it doesn't know everything.
No, of course not. That's why it needs, I mean, like AI needs us to put in the information, right? The more information that we give it, the smarter that it is. But if we weren't there to give it any information, it would still be like, a hunk of computer parts.
Mm-hmm. Although, technology, we do have Terminator movies and
I always think like that because Elon Musk is like totally against AI. And I always think about him when I think about Terminator because he sees that. I feel like something I think about that's really cool about him is that he loves sci-fi and like his whole thing is bringing sci-fi into reality. And so he sees AI and he's like, no, I saw Terminator. Like, don't you guys know that this is not safe?
Well, let's go back a few years with the whole Mockingjay Hunger Games thing, okay? We're having the dystopian novels and everything's falling into crap.
Yes.
And hello, COVID. Hi, everything's kind of...
Sci-fi is just like a time machine, I feel like. Anybody who's written some sort of sci-fi has like seen a crystal ball into the future or something, and they just are like wild predictors for what's going to happen. I mean, The Simpsons like literally predicted COVID.
Mm-hmm. Well, Star Trek. Look at the original Star Trek with the communicator and stuff. It was the original cell phones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you really start unpacking everything, sci-fi, it has offered us a lot. I think more than a lot of people are willing to admit.
That's why it's one of my favorite genres. I love sci-fi, like sci-fi TV. I love books with magic. That's my vibe for sure.
And when you think about, there was a show called Lost Girl, and while it was on sci-fi, it was kind of more of a magical show, and it was really good. But people think, oh, those kind of things can't happen. How do you know those things can't happen?
It's like the same thing when people say like that aliens don't exist. I'm like, you guys.
Pyramids. I know. I had a conversation, my friend and I, there's an episode, one of my friends, Sarah Martucci, and I talked for Halloween. We talked about Sasquatch and aliens and whatnot. And we got into this big conversation about the pyramids are at a certain point on this planet with they say they're high energy. Let's think about this. My favorite thing go ahead.
It's just statistically impossible that we are like in an infinitely expanding universe and that we're the sole intelligent life form in an infinitely expanding universe. Like, you tell me how that math makes sense, because I don't think it does.
It's very egocentric to think
Yes.
that. And you know, I mean, it's almost like, this is going to sound really bad. I almost feel if you're saying that we're kind of like the dive bar planet, you know?
Yes. I think that all the time. The aliens must like pass us by on their vacation, like on their way to different planets, and be like, "Look, we can't go down there. It looks
Lock the
dirty and
doors.
grungy." Yeah.
Lock the doors. There's space junk around there.
Yeah.
Don't know what's going to come get us.
There's still a species who hates each other, and they're of the same species. Like, we can't go down there. They haven't got it figured out yet.
Well, here's a great movie to talk about. That's Fifth Element.
Yes, of course. Iconic.
When she is watching all of that and just crying as she's watching all the TV and stuff. That is an iconic movie for sure.
It's so accurate.
Mm-hmm. I wish that, you know, part of me is like, I wish they would have had a sequel, but then again, it wouldn't be as good.
Exactly. Sometimes, like with the good movies, you just have to say thank you. Don't make a sequel.
The Mummy with Brendan Fraser was an awesome movie. The second one wasn't so bad, but the third and no. Mm-mm.
It just gets like
right. And you know, if we want to go to, I haven't seen the new Matrix, so I can't really.
I have to go see it. I know.
But the first Matrix, I mean, I when I finished watching the first Matrix, I sat there and went, so is this reality or?
Yes, you're like, damn.
Mm-hmm. The other two didn't make me think like that, but the first one definitely just, it hit you home. It hit home with you, and you were just like.
Jurassic Park too. Like the first Jurassic Park was amazing. We should have just kept it like that. And now we got what nonsense are we now doing with Jurassic World? Like, you guys, just because something was good, I feel that all the time. Like I feel like this is coming full circle, but this takes us back to creativity. Like, why haven't we been able to create something amazing like these movies? We think about like Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Fifth Element, The Matrix. Like, we have so many amazing creative films and books, and then now like all we're pumping out is remakes and sequels because we can't come up with anything better. Like, where are my creatives out there?
It's not the creatives. It's the fact that the people who run the studios are not the creatives. The people that run the studios are the money men, and the money men look at it as they want the same big bang for the buck. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean. The first Pirates of the Caribbean was awesome. The second one, and then we started going downhill again.
Yes.
Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
I love Star Wars.
Empire is my favorite movie. The best thing about the prequels was Darth Maul. And I guess Ian McGregor playing Obi-Wan. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
The next movies, the last three, I enjoyed them, but that was because it was something I had wanted to see since I was a kid.
Yeah, it's the nostalgia factor.
That was why. Now, Mandalorian, that's a good show. I enjoy it.
Yeah, because it's different and it's new and it's like, okay, now we're thinking.
Yeah. Where, I mean, to me, I always look at this. The prequels, you killed Darth Maul off. One of the best characters you had. Why? You give me Jar Jar.
Not Game of Thrones. And it's not Game of Thrones where like you kill off the characters and it makes me want to watch it more. That just like hurts my soul a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Now that we've digressed and we've been talking for about an hour, and I'm sure you have other things to do with your day. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to say?
The only other thing that I do want to say is that my book, What I Gave You, is available for pre-order now until January 10th, available via my website, which is himaddiekelley.com. I'll send you the link and then you can put it in the description for people. But
I actually have it.
Oh, perfect. And then it will be available on Amazon and anywhere, you buy your books. It'll be available on January 13th.
Awesome. Congratulations on being
on
your second book, because I know it's a big deal. And I wish you much success.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I absolutely loved it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So Maddie and I had an interesting conversation. And yes, I always say that, but most of my conversations I really do find interesting, and I hope you do too. You know, the fact is I knew a little bit about China because of Liking on Excess. I have, followed some of Michael Hutchins' videos. So I knew a little bit about what she was talking about the freedom. And it's interesting that, people look at China so differently than how it actually is. Hong Kong, there's a lot of camaraderie there. And as she was saying about the school, she had kids from all different countries that were there. And there was a tight-knit community. As far as her book and the life, I think it's interesting that she took a book of poetry and she created a story with it, because so many times poetry is kind of disconnected. It isn't all together. And I think that's kind of a powerful thing. And of course, we did talk about our school system and how we should change things. And it is very timely because, as I said, I happen to read an article today of talking about, will public school go bye-bye? Or, or will there be changes made? Teachers aren't going to want to teach if they're not participating in the class. And while it's safer in some aspects, we don't have to worry about school shooting, there's still the socialization aspect. So maybe we need to look at schools, since we are changing things, since technology is becoming such a big thing, maybe we need to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, school needs to be about these things. It needs to be about creating a community, as she was saying, building stronger citizens instead of all of the, I'm not saying let's dumb things down, but let's make the kids smarter and also more sociable, and also allow them to be able to do things such as grow things and grow food, and that they can be more self-supporting and sustainable, and they have the ability to critically think. Life would be much easier for them in the future. So I'll get off my soapbox now. I hope you enjoyed the show. I had a lot of fun talking to Maddie. As an author, I always enjoy talking to other authors because there is a process that we discuss sometimes, and even our own experiences. So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like the show and you want to leave a comment, or you want to be a guest on the show, please drop me a line at Donna, DAUNA, at better2podcast.com. That's Donna at better2podcast.com. If you missed an episode and would like to catch up, all the episodes can be found at www.better2podcast.com. If you'd like to see who's going to be on the show coming up, you can go to dmneedham.com. That's DMNEEDOM.com. And check it out. I have it under the Better 2 podcast. I always put the future guests down, and you can recognize what shows you are interested in, or you can check them all out because each show is a little different. So on that note, while you're at the Better 2 podcast page, if you want to hit the social links up, go ahead. We do have YouTube videos, and anywhere you're listening to the podcast, please hit subscribe and follow us because we really do like your support. So I hope you have a wonderful day or evening or whenever you're listening to this. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of Third Year Audio Productions.